Under the endless glow of the stars, the grand imperial citadel floated in silence above a golden planet. Its silver towers reached high into the void, guarded by legions of soldiers from dozens of worlds. Among them stood a single human, Commander Ethan Cross, a quiet and disciplined officer who had served the Empire faithfully for years. That night, as the great bells of the citadel echoed through the halls, a messenger arrived. The insignia he carried was one no one could mistake, the mark of the Galactic Empress herself. Ethan stared at the seal for a moment, unsure if it was real. No one of his rank had ever received a direct order from her. Many nobles whispered that she spoke only to the stars, not to mortals. Yet, the message was clear. He was summoned. As Ethan walked through the shining corridors, alien officers stepped aside, whispering to each other in disbelief. "A human?" one murmured. "He's being called to the Forbidden Room." Another shook his head. "Impossible. No one enters that place and returns the same." Ethan tried to hide his unease. He had faced battles, storms, and the darkness of space. But nothing felt as heavy as this silence. At the end of a long golden hallway, 2 royal guards stood before a great door carved with ancient symbols. The metal shimmered with light that seemed to breathe. "This is the Forbidden Room," one of the guards said quietly. "Only the Empress may enter. You are the first exception." The doors opened without a sound. Ethan stepped inside. The air was colder, filled with a faint hum like a living heartbeat. The room was round, its walls covered with floating lights, memories of stars and lost worlds. At its center stood a raised platform, and upon it the Empress herself. She was tall and graceful, her silver-white robes flowing like starlight. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with power but with an ancient calm. She turned slowly, her gaze finding Ethan as though she had known him for years. "Commander Ethan Cross," she said softly. Her voice was gentle but carried through the chamber like music. "A human, a soul from the outer worlds. Do you know why I have called you here?" Ethan bowed, uncertain. "Your Majesty, I do not. I was told only to obey." She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she raised one hand, and from the air itself appeared a sphere of shifting light. Neither solid nor smoke, but something between. It pulsed softly, and within it he saw strange shapes, symbols, planets, and faces that vanished too quickly to name. "This is the Veil of Origin," she said. "It holds the memory of all creation. For centuries my people have guarded it. We have tried to unlock it, to understand its message, but it does not speak to us." Ethan frowned. "And you think it will speak to me?" She took a slow breath. "It already has." The sphere brightened as if it heard her words. Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest, a gentle pulse, almost like a heartbeat matching his own. "Your kind," the Empress continued, "came from beyond the eternal network, from outside the weave that binds our universe. You are unbound. That is why the veil recognizes you." Ethan tried to make sense of her words. "I'm just a soldier, Majesty. I don't understand why something like this would choose me." The Empress stepped closer, her eyes softening. "Because sometimes the simplest hearts carry the clearest truth." For a long moment silence filled the room. Ethan could hear only the faint hum of the veil. Then, almost without thinking, he reached out his hand. The Empress did not stop him. His fingers brushed the surface of light, and the veil came alive. Blinding radiance filled the room. The floating walls shifted, showing visions. Galaxies being born, stars colliding, strange beings watching from beyond. And through it all, Ethan heard a whisper. Not in alien language, not in code, but in clear, familiar English. "Ethan Cross," the voice said. "You are late." Ethan stepped back in shock, his heart racing. The Empress looked equally stunned. "It spoke?" she asked. He nodded slowly, eyes wide. "It said my name. And it knew. My language." The Empress lowered her gaze, her expression unreadable. "Then it has begun," she whispered. "The veil has waited for you." The lights dimmed slowly, leaving only the two of them standing in the quiet glow. Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle upon him. He had come here as a soldier, but something told him this was not a mission he could complete with weapons or commands. The Empress turned back toward the veil, her voice low. "Human, you may not yet understand what you have awakened, but from this moment forward, your life is bound to a truth older than any empire." Ethan looked at the veil. Still pulsing softly, like a living heart, and knew that whatever had begun tonight would change everything. The silence in the forbidden room stretched for what felt like an eternity. Ethan stood motionless, his hand trembling slightly as the last traces of light from the veil faded away. The whisper of his name still echoed in his mind, soft yet impossible to ignore. The Empress remained still beside him, her calm gaze fixed on the glowing sphere. At last, she turned to him. "What you heard was not an illusion," she said quietly. "The veil spoke with a voice not heard in this galaxy for thousands of years." Ethan tried to find his words. "It said I was late." "What does that mean?" The Empress walked closer to the veil, her long robes brushing the smooth floor. "It means," she answered softly, "that this meeting was written long before either of us existed." Ethan frowned. "Written? You mean destiny?" "Perhaps," she replied. "Or perhaps it is only a memory that finally found its voice." She lifted her hand toward the veil. The surface rippled like water, showing fragments of worlds, ancient cities, stars forming, and creatures of light shaping the void. "This artifact was discovered by my ancestors," she said. "We believed it to be the key to creation itself. But no one could unlock its message. Not until you." Ethan looked around the room. Every floating light seemed to hum in rhythm with the veil's pulse. "Why me?" he asked. "I'm not a scientist, not a leader. I'm just a soldier." The Empress turned her gaze toward him. Her eyes, bright and calm, seemed to see deeper than his words. "Sometimes," she said, "the universe chooses not the powerful, but the willing." Her tone carried a quiet sorrow, as though she herself had once asked the same question. Ethan stepped closer to the veil again. "What happens if I touch it again?" She hesitated. "Each contact reveals more, but every truth has a cost. Once you see, you cannot unsee." He considered her warning, then asked softly, "Have you touched it?" She shook her head. "No ruler of the Varelian Empire has dared to. The legends say only the unbound, those free of fate, may do so safely. My people are part of the eternal network. You are not." Ethan took a slow breath, trying to understand. "Humans aren't from this network?" The Empress walked toward a tall crystal window that showed the distant stars. "The network is what connects every species born within this galaxy's heart. All of us share threads of energy, of destiny. But humans, you came from outside. You are strangers to its pattern. That is why the veil responds to you, because you are not written in its design." Her words sank deep into Ethan's thoughts. For years, humans had been the youngest race in the galaxy, respected yet often overlooked. And now, to hear that they were not truly part of the grand design, it felt strange. "Your Majesty," Ethan said carefully, "if this veil is so powerful, why is it forbidden? Why keep it hidden?" She turned back to face him, her expression shadowed by memory. "Because power like this does not only reveal truth, it can change it. Long ago, a great war nearly destroyed the Empire. The veil's energy was misused and entire worlds vanished from history. Since then, only the Empress may enter this place. The room itself obeys ancient seals to protect the galaxy from repeating that mistake." Her voice softened. "Until you touched it, I thought it was only a legend, a relic of old times. But now it has awakened." Ethan looked again at the sphere of light. It floated gently as though breathing. He couldn't explain it, but a small part of him felt drawn to it, not by command but by something deeper. "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. The Empress studied him for a long moment. "I do not yet know," she admitted. "But the veil never speaks without purpose. If it called your name, it means there is something only you can do." Ethan nodded slowly. His heart beat faster, but he kept his voice steady. "Then I'll help you. Whatever this is, I'll see it through." For the first time, a faint smile touched the Empress's lips, brief and almost sorrowful. "You speak like a true guardian," she said. "But remember, Commander, the deeper you walk into truth, the harder it becomes to return to who you were." Ethan gave a small nod. "Maybe that's a risk worth taking." The veil flickered again, as if responding to his words. Strange lights swirled within it, and for a heartbeat Ethan thought he saw shadows of human faces, ancient, watching him with quiet eyes. The Empress noticed his stare. "What do you see?" He hesitated. "I'm not sure. It feels like they know me." Her gaze grew thoughtful. "Perhaps they do." The veil's hum deepened and the room trembled gently. The Empress raised her hand and the lights steadied. She looked at Ethan, her calm voice now tinged with warning. The Veil has chosen you, but there are those in this empire who would fear such power in human hands. You must speak of this to no one. Ethan nodded, though unease crept into his chest. Something about the room, about the Veil, felt alive, as if it was listening. As the Empress dismissed him, Ethan turned for the door. Hi. His mind full of questions. But before he left, he looked back one last time. The Veil pulsed again, and in the faint whisper of air, he thought he heard his name once more. Softer, almost kind. Outside, the great halls of the Citadel were silent. Yet deep within, the Veil of Origin had begun to stir, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Ethan walked through the long golden corridors of the Citadel, his steps echoing softly in the silence. The summons had ended, but the Empress's words kept repeating in his mind. The Veil has chosen you. He could still feel the strange warmth from when he had touched the glowing sphere. It was as if part of that light had entered him and refused to fade. Outside the forbidden room, 2 guards stood waiting. They bowed slightly, avoiding his eyes. No one asked questions, but Ethan could sense their curiosity. A human being called by the Empress. It was something that had never happened before. He returned to his quarters quietly, not speaking to anyone. Even if he tried, how could he explain what he had just seen? As the artificial night deepened over the Citadel, Ethan sat by the window watching distant stars drift past. Somewhere out there, his home, Earth, was a small blue dot. He wondered if his people knew how deeply their kind had been noticed now. For years, humans had served the Empire in peace, but they were still outsiders. And now, one of them had been chosen by something that even the Empress feared. The next day, whispers filled the corridors. News traveled fast among the higher ranks. They said the Empress had broken tradition, that she had called a human into the sacred chamber. Some called it destiny. Others called it danger. Among those who heard, none was more troubled than Lord Cathar, commander of the Imperial Guard. Cathar was tall, with cold, sharp eyes. His loyalty to the Empress was unquestioned, but his trust in outsiders was not. He had seen many species rise and fall under the Empire's rule. Humans were still young, unpredictable, and too curious for their own good. When he heard that the Forbidden Room had opened for one of them, his mind filled with suspicion. Late that evening, Cathar summoned one of his aides. Find out everything about this human, he ordered. Where he was born, what battles he's fought, who trained him. If the Empress trusts him, I want to know why. The aide bowed and left quickly. Cathar stood alone, staring at the glowing map of the Empire before him. No outsider touches the Veil, he whispered to himself. Not without consequence. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the Citadel library, Ethan searched through old records. He wanted to know more about the Veil, its origins, its purpose. But every file he opened stopped at the same point. The same phrase appeared again and again, access restricted by royal decree. It seemed the truth had been locked away centuries ago. As he turned another page, he heard soft footsteps. A voice spoke behind him, gentle, calm. You will not find answers in old data, Commander. Ethan turned. It was the Empress. He quickly stood and bowed. Your Majesty. I didn't expect, she raised a hand slightly, signaling him to relax. You seek knowledge. That is not a crime. Ethan hesitated. I just wanted to understand. The Veil spoke to me. I can't explain it, but it feels alive. The Empress studied him quietly. It is alive, in a way beyond what we understand. The Veil remembers everything. It remembers the birth of stars, the fall of empires, and perhaps even us. She stepped closer to the window, her gaze distant. My ancestors believed that one day, the Veil would call upon a being who walks outside the pattern of fate. That being, they said, would awaken its true voice. It seems that being is you. Ethan's brow furrowed. Why me? Why not one of your own? Her eyes softened. Because my people are bound to destiny. We follow the threads written by the network. You human were born beyond it. You carry the power to question fate itself. Ethan fell silent. The idea seemed too large to hold. He was a soldier, not a chosen one. Yet something deep inside him, something quiet and persistent, told him she was right. Just then, a faint tremor shook the floor. The library lights flickered. The Empress turned sharply. They are trying to enter the chamber, she whispered. Ethan followed her as she hurried through the corridors. When they reached the Forbidden Room, the great doors stood slightly open. The guards at the entrance lay unconscious, though unharmed. Inside, the air was thick with light. Lord Cathar stood before the veil, his hand reaching toward it. His face was pale, eyes wide with awe. "Cathar!" The Empress's voice rang through the chamber. He froze, turning to her. "Majesty," he said, his tone trembling. This thing showed me visions. A future where our empire burns, and a human stands over the ashes." Ethan felt his chest tighten. The veil pulsed softly behind Cathar, glowing brighter as if responding to his fear. "That is not for you to see," the Empress said firmly. "The veil chooses its witness. You were not chosen." Cathar took a step back, shaken. "You trust this human, Majesty, but what if it is he who destroys us?" Ethan stepped forward. "I don't want destruction," he said quietly. "I just want the truth." For a long moment, the three of them stood in silence. A ruler, a soldier, and a guardian bound by doubt. Then slowly the veil dimmed, returning to its calm pulse. The Empress turned to Cathar. "Leave this place. Speak of what you saw to no one." Cathar bowed stiffly and departed, his eyes lingering on Ethan before he disappeared into the corridor. As the doors closed, Ethan looked toward the Empress. "He saw a future where I cause ruin," he said softly. She met his gaze. "The veil shows possibilities, not certainties. Remember that, Commander?" Ethan nodded, though unease still lingered in his heart. Deep down he wondered, what if Cathar's vision was not a warning but a prophecy waiting to unfold? Days passed after the incident in the Forbidden Room, but the memory of Lord Cathar's warning refused to leave Ethan's mind. Each time he closed his eyes, he could still see the fear in Cathar's face and hear his voice. A human, standing over the ashes of the Empire. The words haunted him like a shadow. The Empress, however, seemed calm. She returned to her duties as though nothing had happened. But Ethan noticed subtle changes. Longer silences during councils, quiet stares toward the stars, and a weight behind her words that wasn't there before. She had begun to think deeply, as if trying to solve a puzzle too large for any mind to hold. One evening, she sent for him again. Ethan arrived at her private chamber, a quiet hall filled with maps of stars and ancient artifacts. The veil's glow could still be seen from a distance, faintly lighting the corridor beyond. "Commander Ethan," she said softly as he entered, "you have seen the veil's power. You know it holds more than knowledge. It holds memory. But what you touched was only a fragment. The veil itself is incomplete." Ethan blinked. "Incomplete? You mean there's more?" She nodded. "The ancient records speak of 3 fragments, keys that bind the veil together. One is here under my protection. The second was lost in the time of the old wars. The third—" her voice lowered. "The third was hidden by beings who feared its truth." Ethan listened carefully. "And you think one of them is still out there?" She turned toward him, her eyes steady. "Yes, it is called the Memory Shard. Without it, the veil cannot show the full picture of creation. And I believe you are meant to find it." Ethan's chest tightened. "You want me to leave the Citadel?" "I must know what the veil hides," she said. "If there is danger, we must understand it before others seek it. But only you can reach where the shard sleeps. The path is closed to my kind," he hesitated. "Then where do I start?" She touched a glowing panel beside her. A star map unfolded in midair, showing a cluster of forgotten worlds near the edge of the Empire. One of them was marked in red, a dead system abandoned centuries ago. "This planet was once known as Ardent 9, she explained. "Long ago it held a human research outpost before the Empire found your world. The records say it was destroyed, but our historians found signs of a signal still pulsing beneath its surface. I believe that is where the shard lies." Ethan studied the map, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. A lost human world, erased from history, hidden beyond the Empire's reach. "If I go," he said slowly, "will I be alone?" "I will assign you a small vessel," she replied. "No escorts, no soldiers. The fewer who know, the safer this mission will be." Ethan gave a small nod. "Then I'll go." For a brief moment, the Empress's calm mask softened. "Be careful, Commander. The veil's path is not meant to be walked lightly. And remember, not every truth is ready to be seen." He bowed, then turned toward the door. But before he left, her voice stopped him. "Ethan," she said quietly, "if you find the shard, do not try to use it. Bring it back. Promise me." "I promise," he said. The next day, a small ship left the Citadel under a false code, hidden from Imperial records. Ethan sat in the pilot's seat, the stars stretching before him like endless rivers of light. The journey took several days through silent space. Alone, he thought of Earth, of the Empress, and of the Veil's whisper. "You are late. What had he be?" And late for? When his ship finally reached Ardent 9, he found a world covered in dust and silence. The planet's surface was broken and dry, its cities buried under ancient storms. He landed near a cracked dome, its metal half buried beneath rock. The air was thin but breathable. As he stepped out, the crunch of dust under his boots was the only sound. The sky above was pale, the sun dim. He moved carefully through the ruins, guided by the scanner in his wrist. It led him toward a collapsed building, one that still carried faint traces of human architecture. Inside, he found walls carved with symbols, strange mixtures of human letters and alien patterns. They seemed to tell a story, one of travelers from Earth who had reached the stars long before recorded history. Ethan brushed his hand across the markings, his heart beating faster. Deeper inside, he discovered a small chamber. In the center hovered a crystal, faintly glowing with blue light. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, just like the Veil had. "The memory shard," he whispered. As he stepped closer, the light grew stronger. Images flickered in the air. Faces of humans, ancient ships crossing dark space, and then a warning written in fading letters. "Do not awaken what sleeps within the Veil. It remembers more than truth." Ethan's eyes widened. The message was old and older than the Empire itself. He reached for the shard, feeling the hum of energy through his fingers. When he touched it, a voice echoed softly in his mind. The same voice from before. "Ethan Cross, the past is not as you were told." A wave of light surrounded him, and for an instant he saw visions of stars collapsing, civilizations erased, and a hand, and human and familiar, pressing against the Veil. Then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes again, the shard floated quietly before him, glowing gently as if waiting. Ethan took a deep breath. Whatever this thing was, it had shown him something he couldn't yet understand. Carefully, he placed it into a containment unit. He looked up at the sky where his ship waited. "Empress," he whispered to himself, "I think I found more than you expected." And somewhere beyond the stars, deep within the Citadel, the Veil of Origin pulsed once, as if it had heard him. When Ethan returned to the Imperial Citadel, the once peaceful halls no longer felt calm. The moment his small ship entered the docking bay, he noticed the heavy presence of guards, and the usual soft music of the Empire's heart was replaced by tense silence. Something had changed while he was gone. He carried the memory shard safely inside a containment unit, holding it close to his chest as he stepped out of the craft. Its faint blue glow shimmered through the glass like a living heartbeat. At the gate, 2 soldiers approached him. Their eyes were sharp, their tone formal. "Commander Ethan Cross," one said. "By order of the Imperial Council, you are to report directly to the throne chamber." Ethan frowned. "I was summoned by the Empress herself, not the Council." The soldier hesitated, then replied quietly, "The Council demanded to see you first." Something inside Ethan stirred uneasily. He followed them through the golden corridors, noticing how other officers whispered as he passed. The looks they gave him were no longer filled with curiosity. They carried suspicion. When he entered the throne chamber, a crowd of alien nobles stood around the central platform. At the far end sat the Empress, her face calm but her eyes troubled. And beside her, armored in silver and black, stood Lord Cathar. The council speaker, an elder with shimmering skin, stepped forward. "Commander Ethan," he said, his voice echoing, "we have received troubling reports. During your absence, a rumor has spread that you, a human, have touched the Veil and now claim its power." Ethan's hands tightened around the containment unit. "I don't claim anything. I only followed the Empress's order." Cathar's eyes narrowed. "And what did you bring back from your journey, human? Another weapon? Another secret you plan to keep for yourself?" "I brought this," Ethan said, raising the shard slightly. The blue glow filled the chamber, casting gentle light on every face. A murmur spread among the council. The Empress stood slowly. "Enough," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried authority that silenced the room. "Commander Ethan acted under my command. The item he carries is part of the Veil's truth. None here will question his loyalty." Cathar stepped forward. Majesty, with respect, loyalty can be shaped by the veil's will. We saw what it can do. What if this relic bends his mind? What if he is no longer himself? The Empress met his gaze firmly. Do you doubt my judgment, Lord Cathar? Cathar lowered his head, though his voice remained sharp. I doubt the wisdom of trusting something we do not understand. Silence filled the hall. Ethan looked at the Empress, unsure of what to say. He wanted to defend himself, but her calm expression told him not to. At last she spoke again. The veil chose him, and now it calls again. Whatever fears we carry, we cannot silence destiny. The council reluctantly agreed to let Ethan pass, though the whispers followed him even after he left the chamber. Outside, he walked beside the Empress in quiet. They're afraid, he said softly. Yes, she replied. Power that cannot be controlled always inspires fear, and the veil's power reaches beyond any throne. They reached the forbidden room once more. The great doors opened at her presence. Inside, the veil pulsed gently, brighter than before. As Ethan stepped closer, the shard in his hand began to glow, answering the veil's light. The Empress's eyes widened slightly. It recognizes the fragment, Ethan nodded. When I found it, it showed me things, visions. Humans from long ago. They warned not to awaken the veil fully. She looked thoughtful. Warnings from the past are often written by those who feared change. The shard floated from Ethan's hands and merged into the veil. The entire chamber filled with a deep hum, and images appeared in the air and stars forming, galaxies twisting, and then humans. Not modern ones, but ancient figures standing among alien beings shaping worlds together. Ethan's breath caught. Humans were here before recorded history, the Empress whispered. So it's true. Your kind were part of the beginning. The visions shifted again, showing a council of ancient humans debating before the veil. One of them reached forward, touching it, and then a voice rang out through the room. Free will must remain. No empire, no god, no machine will decide our fate. Then the light faded, leaving silence behind. Ethan stood still, trying to understand what he had seen. They spoke about freedom. They didn't want the veil to be used for control. The Empress turned to him. Perhaps that is why it called you. Because you are free. Unbound by destiny, unshaped by the network. For a moment, they simply stood together, watching the fading glow. But then a sharp alarm echoed through the citadel. Cathar's voice came through the comms, urgent and cold. Majesty, intruders have breached the outer levels. The council is demanding we secure the forbidden room. The Empress looked toward the door, her expression unreadable. So it begins. Ethan stepped forward. What do you want me to do? Stay here, she said firmly. The veil must not fall into the wrong hands. He nodded, watching as she left the room with swift, steady steps. The great doors closed behind her, leaving Ethan alone with the glowing veil. Its hum deepened, the symbols on its surface shifting like living stars. Then softly it spoke again in the same calm voice as before. Ethan Cross, you must choose soon. The truth is coming. Ethan stared at the light, a quiet chill running down his spine. Outside, distant echoes of shouting filled the corridors. The Empire was beginning to divide, and he stood at the center of it, chosen by a relic older than history, trusted by an Empress and feared by her own guard. And somewhere within the light, the veil pulsed again, as if waiting for his next decision. The citadel trembled with distant echoes as Ethan stood before the veil, its light pulsing like a living heart. Outside the sealed chamber, alarms continued to blare. He could hear faint sounds of movement, boots striking metal floors, muffled voices issuing commands, and the growing hum of approaching ships. The veil's voice lingered in his mind, calm yet filled with a strange weight. Ethan Cross, the moment of choice is near. He stepped closer. What choice? I don't understand. Symbols rippled across the veil's surface, forming shapes that resembled star maps and ancient faces. The blue glow brightened, filling the room with an almost sacred light. Ethan felt warmth, not from heat, but from something deeper, like a memory not his own. The door suddenly shook, followed by a sharp metallic clang. Someone was trying to break through. Ethan turned quickly. Empress? He called, but there was no reply. His communicator buzzed faintly, and Cathar's voice came through, cold and commanding. Ethan Cross, step away from the veil. The council has declared it too dangerous. Surrender now and no harm will come to you. Ethan frowned. You don't understand. The veil isn't a weapon, it's alive. Cathar's voice hardened. All life that cannot be controlled becomes a threat. Step aside. The door shook again, cracks forming along its edges. Ethan turned back to the veil. If they destroy you, what happens? The voice of the veil echoed softly in his mind. Destruction of the veil means the collapse of all bound systems, the Empire, the Council, and the memories that sustain them. The network will fade. Ethan's chest tightened. So, everything connected to your power will fall? Yes, but in its fall, freedom will rise. He took a deep breath. That's why you called me, isn't it? Because I'm not connected. I'm not part of your system. You are free. Only one who is free can decide if others should remain bound. Before Ethan could answer, the great doors finally gave way. A blast of energy struck them, and the panels flew open with a crash. Guards in silver armor poured in, their weapons aimed at him. Behind them strode Cathar, his eyes burning with intensity. Step away, Cathar ordered. Ethan didn't move. The veil's light surrounded him, forming a faint barrier. You don't have to do this, Ethan said. The veil isn't your enemy. Cathar raised his arm, energy building in his gauntlet. You're blinded by it. Humans always think they're special, but you're just another pawn of something greater. Ethan shook his head. No, it's not controlling me. It's showing me a choice, one that affects everyone. The Empress suddenly appeared in the doorway. Her royal guards followed, surrounding Cathar's soldiers. Enough, she commanded, her voice ringing through the chamber. Lower your weapons, Cathar turned sharply. Majesty, he's been influenced. The veil is manipulating him. But the Empress's gaze softened as she looked at Ethan. No, the veil does not manipulate, it reveals. She stepped closer, her flowing robes brushing the floor. The light of the veil reflected in her eyes as she spoke quietly to Ethan. What did it show you? Ethan hesitated. It showed me what came before. When humans and others stood together, it said freedom must remain. It asked me to choose. The Empress looked at the veil. Then perhaps this is why it was sealed away. Because no one wanted to face that choice. Cathar clenched his fists. Majesty, if he activates it, everything we built could collapse. The Empress turned to him. Maybe what we built was never meant to last forever. The words struck him silent. Around them, the veil's hum deepened, vibrating through the chamber. The shard Ethan had brought now glowed brighter, fusing completely into the veil's surface. The voice returned, speaking not just to Ethan but to everyone present. The time has come. One choice. Preserve the structure of control, or release it and return all beings to their will. Cathar stepped back, shaking his head. This will destroy us. Ethan looked to the Empress. What do you want me to do? She met his eyes with calm strength. The veil chose you, not me. This is your decision. Ethan's heart pounded. He looked at Cathar, a man of loyalty and fear. He looked at the Empress and a leader burdened by destiny. Then he turned to the veil. I don't want to destroy anyone, he whispered, but no empire should own the will of others. If freedom means change, then it's worth the risk. He reached out his hand. The moment his palm touched the veil, a wave of light burst outward, filling the entire room. The soldiers shielded their eyes. Cathar staggered back. The Empress stood still, her expression peaceful. Images flashed through Ethan's mind. Cities dissolving, stars aligning, chains breaking. The veil's network unraveled, releasing energy like a silent storm. Then everything went white. When the light faded, the alarms had stopped. The chamber stood quiet. The veil's glow softened into a gentle shimmer, no longer humming but breathing, calm, alive. Ethan stood before it, still and silent. The Empress looked around, sensing something different. The Citadel's walls no longer pulsed with network light. The Empire's systems had gone silent. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was free from the veil's control. Ethan turned to her. It's done, she nodded slowly. Yes, and now, we begin again. But in her eyes, a quiet question remained. What would freedom bring next? The great citadel floated silently among the stars, its once bright towers now dim under the soft light of distant suns. For the first time in centuries, no hum of the veil echoed through its walls. The invisible force that had connected minds, shaped destinies, and guided every decision was gone. What remained was a silence, heavy, unfamiliar, yet strangely peaceful. Ethan stood on the upper balcony, looking out into the endless night. The stars shone brighter than ever, unfiltered by the veil's control. He felt something new inside him. Not power, not command, but calm. It was the feeling of choice. Behind him, the great doors opened and the Empress stepped out. Her robes were simpler now, her crown absent. Without the veil's presence, her connection to the ancient network was broken. Yet she carried herself with the same quiet grace. "It's beautiful," Ethan said softly. "I never realized how quiet the universe could be." She walked beside him, gazing at the stars. "The galaxy is waking up. Whole worlds are sending messages. Some are confused, others frightened. But many are hopeful." Ethan nodded. "They'll need guidance. Without the veil, they'll have to decide everything for themselves." "That was always meant to be," she said gently. "No ruler, no council should decide the hearts of others. Perhaps your people knew this long before we did." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but humans aren't perfect either. Freedom is messy. We'll make mistakes. Then we will learn," she said. "Together." They stood in silence for a while, the wind of the station brushing past them. In the distance, a few small ships drifted away from the citadel. Ambassadors and leaders returning to their homeworlds, now unbound from the veil's influence. Each one carried the same uncertainty, but also the same spark of beginning. Cathar approached from behind. His armor was scorched, his usual proud posture softened. He stopped a few steps away. "Majesty," he said quietly. "Repairs are underway. Some systems may never return to full strength." The Empress nodded. "Let them rest. The Citadel will no longer be a throne. It will be a meeting place." Cathar looked at Ethan, his tone hesitant. "I misjudged you, human. I thought you sought power, but you gave it away." Ethan met his eyes calmly. "Power isn't worth much if it takes choice from others." Cathar bowed his head slightly. "Then perhaps this was always your destiny." Ethan shook his head. "No, destiny means something was planned. I think we just made our own path." The Empress turned to Cathar. "You have served faithfully. Now help the world stand on their own. Teach them what it means to lead without control." Cathar nodded and left quietly, his steps echoing down the corridor. When he was gone, the Empress looked at Ethan again. "You've changed us. The Veil, the Council, even me. The galaxy will remember this moment." Ethan looked down at his hands. "I didn't mean to change anyone. I just wanted to do what felt right. And that," she said softly, "is why you were chosen." A faint shimmer passed through the sky, like the last ripple of the Veil's fading power. Ethan felt it brush his thoughts. Gentle, almost like a goodbye. He turned to the Empress. "Do you think it's really gone?" She smiled faintly. "Not gone. Only resting. Perhaps one day, when the galaxy is ready again, it will awaken. But next time it won't lead, it will listen." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then that's enough." They walked together along the balcony, passing broken lights and silent pillars. The Citadel felt emptier, yet also more alive. Everywhere, people were speaking again, not with thoughts but with voices. Decisions were being made by choice, not command. It was chaotic, uncertain, but real. The Empress stopped and looked at Ethan. "What will you do now?" He gazed out at the stars once more. "Humans came here as visitors. Maybe it's time I go home. There's a lot my people could learn from this." She seemed thoughtful. "If you leave, the Council will ask questions. Many worlds still fear what they don't understand." He smiled. "Then maybe they'll have to face their fears, just like we did." She studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "You have a strange kind of courage, Ethan Cross. The kind that changes empires without a weapon." He chuckled quietly. "I'll take that as a compliment." The two stood side by side as a shuttle descended onto the lower docks. Its lights shimmered softly against the quiet halls. The Empress looked at him one last time. "Thank you," she said, "for freeing us, even from ourselves." He bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for trusting me." As Ethan walked toward the ship, the Empress remained on the balcony, her gaze fixed on the stars. The shuttle lifted off gently, breaking through the clouds of the Citadel and vanishing into the open sky. She watched it go, her voice barely above a whisper. "May freedom guide you." Ethan looked out from the cockpit window, seeing the Citadel shrink into the distance, a silver monument no longer bound by fate. Around it, the stars glittered brighter than ever, unshaped, untouched, free. He smiled faintly. The galaxy was vast, uncertain, and full of life again, and somewhere beyond those stars, a new chapter was beginning. one written not by destiny but by choice. For the first time in ages, the universe belonged to everyone,